Hello YouTube. Today I'm going to show you how to put a big LED light bar on your truck or SUV or I suppose even a car. First dilemma I had was really whether to mount it here on the bumper or try to mount it up here on this little crossbar here. My fear here, I don't know how much airflow it's going to block to the radiator, but eyeballing it, it looks like it should be okay. Hopefully I won't have any overheating problems. Downside is if I put it here and then have overheating problems and have to move it, then I'm going to have holes in the bumper here. So to kind of figure out exactly where this needs to go, what I did is I put the brackets on and I lined them up so they're the same on both sides, and that's not necessarily where it's going to end up when it's finally mounted, but I wanted to get a good starting point so they'd be in the same spot. Obviously you can adjust the angle once it's in, but so I started with it lined up there, and then what I did was I placed it here and kind of eyeballed it, and when I got it pretty much eyeballed, and I took a pencil and circled around where those bolts were. So there and there are where the pencil marks are. Now to make sure that this doesn't end up crooked, I'm going to take a ruler and measure from there to the front of there on both sides, and from this little ridge to the center there on both sides, and make sure they're approximately in the same spot, and then I may move them. And then before I drill, I need to climb under the vehicle and make sure that there's access to the bottom side of this from the bottom, because if there's not, I won't be able to tighten the nut to hold in the light bar. Alright, I confirmed with the ruler the right spot, and also confirmed underneath the car that you have access. So I'll drill a pilot hole first. And that pilot hole just helps keep the drill bit from sliding around. Then I'll drill the actual hole. I did manage to get the nut threaded onto the bolt on the underside. Now it's not tightened obviously yet. To say it was difficult to do would be a massive understatement, but what I was able to accomplish was I took the nut and I glued the washer to it and dropped it into the socket like that, and I fished it up behind here to the bottom. Now obviously I angled this so it was on there. Got a few turns going, and unfortunately I couldn't get it totally tightened, so now I'm going to try to fish this up here, and hopefully, since this can bend and contort, hopefully there's a metal bumper behind here, so you kind of got to go up and around, and then it's got to twist back to the nut since the nut's going in at an angle. So that's what I'm hoping that this will work. Once I get that on there, I get to do everything in my power to make sure that it doesn't slip off of there, because it's not easy to get that fished around and all the way up there. But once I get it, I'm going to grab that socket and start turning. Alright, I'm underneath the inside of the bumper here. I want to show you there's two 7mm bolts. I think they're both visible on the camera. When you remove those, the whole fog light assembly can move back enough that you can get your socket wrench up in between there and reach the location where I have those holes drilled. So, not the easiest job I've ever done, but I did finally figure out how to make it work. Alright, I gave up on this side. I could not get the socket up through there attached to the bottom side of this nut and turn it. Just wasn't going to happen. So you see I've pulled the bumper cover away. Actually was not as much work as I really thought it would be. There are two 10mm bolts right there and right there. Then there are four 7mm bolts, and those run up inside of there. Once you've removed those bolts, you see there's two slide clip retainers and inside there. So these kind of go on that way, so they come off straight off. Once you've removed the bolts though, just kind of wiggle and pull and it'll start to pull away, and then you see those are just held on, just kind of slide up under there. So now that I've done that, I should be able to fish the socket wrench up under there and get that one snug. Alright, I got the brackets on. That was probably one of the more challenging tasks like this that I've done, so I feel pretty accomplished. Got the bumper cover put back on, and now it's time to mount the light. It just takes four of these little Allen screws with washers on them. Once you get the light aimed, you want to tighten the bolts down with your Allen wrench really tight. You can put some RTV or something in there to keep those from turning. The rest of the installation is very easy. You just need to fish wires from wherever you're going to have your switch out to here. For this particular truck, probably going to run it through the driver's side of the firewall, but I'll look and see. And obviously I'll show you all that. But for me personally, I usually use accessory power rather than battery power, so I'll run this one to an accessory hot and this one to a full-time ground, and then I'll have a switch in there. Alright, so there's a pass-through that goes to the passenger compartment kind of behind the brake pedal area, so that's probably an ideal place to run it. It's just got that rubber boot there, so when you push it in, you have a pass-through there. And obviously you want to try to run the wires in the actual boot if you can, for water purposes. If you can't, then you need to try to run them along the side of it and then seal it up so that water doesn't get through there in your passenger compartment. The wires have passed through there, and you may be wondering why I have a red and a green, and I'll tell you. So the green is going to be accessory power, and that's going to run out towards the light, and I'm going to run a thicker hot wire to it through a relay, so that basically the green wire will trigger the relay will kick out hotter power than that little 20 gauge wire. So if you're wondering why the red wire, I'm running it because I want to put in a under hood light when you open the hood, and so I'm just thinking ahead. I've got this running now. I'll run that to a fused power source, and that'll just be one less thing to mess with later. Over here you see I've fished the green wire through a mess and maze of wires that you see I've done different projects over the years, and then I drilled a hole in the back of there, and I'm going to put my switch box in here so that I'll be able to turn on the light from there. I didn't want to waste your time watching me crimp wires, but basically we'll have a switch. This will attach to a accessory power. This will go to a ground, and the output will connect to the green wire that I fished in earlier. And so looks something like that. That snaps in there, and then I have the other switch for the camera power that I've just basically had the switch hidden, but now I'm going to have it in the switch panel. And you see I marked it so that I can drill another switch later on if I need to. But that's basically how it works. Pretty straightforward. If you don't know how to crimp wires, you just strip them back a little bit, slide them into those attachments, crimp it down. I usually do 2 or 3 crimps, and then I'll put the heat shrinker on there just so that it never bumps into anything. And if you don't really have to ground the switch, it's just for the light in the switch. So in this particular case, I want the light on the switch to come on when the switch is on. But if you don't ground it, then obviously the switch just works as a switch without a light on it. Alright, so this mess is how it works. So you see I've stripped back that blue wire a little bit and attached the white wire to it, and I'm going to solder that in. That's the accessory power, and then you see the black there. Same thing, that's the ground. So got some flux on there, waiting for the soldering iron to warm up, and then I'll just solder those and then tape them off. And then snap all this back in, and all the switch wiring will be done, and then it's just a matter of hooking up the relay to the light. And that's what it looks like. So the one that's all red is the fog light, and the one that has a little red light on it is my dash cam, basically override. So the fact that the light is on now, there's power to the dash cam. If I turn that off, then the dash cam only comes on when the key is on. So have that to keep the dash cam charged when I'm not driving it. I fished the wires through, and there's different ways you could do this. Obviously you could pull this whole grill off, but what I did is I just ran the wires to the same spot here so I can solder them together and then just push them back through, and they'll stay behind the grill, and I can decide how I want to connect them, but they'll basically be routed to the power. So I'm just going to put something underneath here and solder these, and pull the heat shrink over, and like I said, push it back through the grill and finish pushing the wires to where I want them to go. This cover pops up, and you can see right in there are 2 12-volt positive terminals there, both with a retaining nut, and just loosen the retaining nut, and I attached the spade attachment there. So that's going to be the power source for the light.